Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. The FBI arrests 4 suspects behind an alleged New Year's Eve bomb plot. Attorney General Pam Bondi said a group called the Turtle Island Liberation Front was planning the attack. Police are investigating the deaths of director Rob Reiner and his wife at their LA home. What we know about the incident so far. An update on the tragic Brown University shooting. Police have released a man previously held as a person of interest. And Australia vows to tighten gun control after the deadly shooting that killed 15 at a Hanukkah celebration in Sydney. The attack sending reverberations around the world amid rising anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, a U.S. delegation concludes peace talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Germany. What Kyiv says about the outcome and the progress made during the meeting.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Monday, December 15th. I'm Stephanie Cox. The FBI says it has thwarted a bomb plot against multiple targets in Los Angeles and Orange County. Attorney General Pam Bondi said a group called the Turtle Island Liberation Front had been planning the attack. Bondi described the organization as, quote, far-left, pro-Palestine, anti-government, and anti-capitalist. FBI Director Kash Patel said the suspects were planning coordinated IED bombing attacks on New Year's Eve. Patel said they had been targeting 5 separate locations across Los Angeles. Bondi said targets included immigration enforcement agents and vehicles. 4 suspects have been arrested. Patel said a 5th suspect linked to the group was arrested in New Orleans. He said that individual had been planning a separate attack. And Hollywood actor and director Rob Reiner, along with his wife Michelle, were found dead in their Los Angeles home yesterday. Police say no suspects have been identified and homicide detectives are involved in the investigation. Here's what we know.
Actor-director Rob Reiner and his wife were found dead in their Los Angeles home on Sunday in a case that police are investigating as an apparent homicide. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass and California Governor Gavin Newsom have each released statements confirming the deaths of Reiner and his wife. In a post on social media, Bass wrote that Reiner's passing was a devastating loss for our city and our country. Police have yet to publicly identify the deceased, however. LAPD Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton says police officers searched the house.
Upon arrival, they determined that there were 2 deceased individuals inside of the residence. The Los Angeles Police Department is now conducting an investigation at this residence here on Chadbourne, and that investigation will continue over the coming days. In terms of someone that may have information regarding what happened inside the residence, we're not going to release that information. That'll be part of the investigation.
Hamilton said police had not identified the suspect as of Sunday night. He added that the cause of death will be made public by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office.
You're on 10 on your guitar. Where can you go from there? Where?
As an actor, Rob Reiner was best remembered for his breakout role on the classic TV comedy All in the Family. He played Mike Meathead Stivic, the outspoken son-in-law and the liberal foil to Archie Bunker, portrayed by Carol O'Connor. Reiner was also known for his filmmaking, directing some of Hollywood's most beloved movies. That includes The Princess Bride, This is Spinal Tap, and When Harry Met Sally. His wife, Michelle Singer, once worked as a photographer and famously captured the image of Donald Trump featured on the cover of Trump, The Art of the Deal.
And we have an update on that story. According to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office booking records, Nick Reiner, the son of Rob Reiner, is being held on $4 million bail. The 32-year-old has been in and out of rehab facilities for years due to drug issues. In a 2016 interview with People magazine, Nick Reiner openly discussed his struggle with drug addiction and his experiences living on the streets. We'll keep you updated as the investigation unfolds. And next, an update on that tragic shooting at Brown University. Police have released a man held as a person of interest in the incident that left 2 students dead and 9 injured. The mayor of Providence said this morning a video that's been released to the public is the clearest picture of the person believed to be responsible, but that the investigation is still ongoing.
We have been continuing this investigation since the very beginning, now not even 48 hours. And so we're running down tips that have come in, leads that have been developed, recanvassing the immediate area for additional video evidence, but the investigation is fully underway with a lot of resources that have been offered and that we're taking advantage of from our partners both locally and federally.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the investigation and reactions from President Trump and others.
Police in Providence said yesterday that a man in his 20s was taken into custody in connection with Saturday's shooting. But at a late-night news conference hours later, Providence Mayor Brett Smiley said the man would be released.
We know that this is likely to cause fresh anxiety for our community.
Smiley says the investigation was going in a different direction and that he doesn't believe the community is at risk.
And so the status of safety in our community remains unchanged. And we believe that you remain safe in our community.
Certainly there was some degree of evidence that pointed to this individual, but that evidence needed to be corroborated and confirmed.
Police say they got a tip and the FBI followed through with it, and they ended up locating the individual of interest who was eventually released. FBI Director Kash Patel yesterday said the agency activated the FBI's Cellular Analysis Survey team to provide critical geolocation capabilities. Authorities say 7 of the injured are in stable condition, 1 is recovering but still in critical condition, and 1 has been discharged from the hospital. First fatality in the shooting has been named as Ella Cook, a sophomore who served as vice president of the campus College Republicans. Her identity was confirmed by her parish in Alabama and by a former classmate. Crowds gathered at a Providence park yesterday evening to honor the victims.
I always felt that Brown is such a safe place, and Providence as well, and so it really kind of hits home. We're all very sad and coming out of a period of being very scared.
President Trump paid his respects to the victims.
Unfortunately, 2 are no longer with us. Brown University, 9 injured, and 2 are looking down on us right now from heaven.
Trump called Brown one of the greatest schools anywhere in the world.
Things can happen, so to the 9 injured, get well fast, and to the families of those 2 that are no longer with us, I pay my deepest regards and respects from the United States of America.
The attack set off hours of chaos across the Ivy League campus and surrounding Providence neighborhoods as hundreds of officers searched for the shooter and urged students and staff to shelter in place. Brown University has canceled exams and classes for the rest of the year. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thanks to Daniel for that report. And the Providence City Council is directing people with any information related to Saturday's shooting at Brown University to share it with the FBI. That includes any tips, videos, or photos as authorities continue their investigation. Tips can be sent to fbi.gov/Brown University shooting. Over in Australia, the deadly attack on a Hanukkah celebration is highlighting growing concerns about anti-Semitism around the world. The shooting on Bondi Beach in Sydney left 15 people dead and dozens injured. Here's what we know so far, and a warning, the following footage may be disturbing for some viewers.
Flags fly at half-mast across Sydney as Australia mourns the victims of a shooting at Bondi Beach. 15 people were killed. Police locked down the area after 2 gunmen opened fire Sunday during a Hanukkah celebration on the beach. Witnesses described the chaos that followed.
So a few of us went out there, and just people were just running up the street here. And then someone goes, there's a shooter, and then we started hearing shots.
Among the dead, a 10-year-old girl and a prominent rabbi who helped organize the event. Authorities say about 1,000 people were gathered when the shooting began. Police say investigations also recover unexploded devices near the scene. The attack followed months of rising anti-Semitic incidents across the country, though police have not linked those cases to the shooting.
Last night I was talking to my own 12-year-old daughter, who every year since she was born was with me at this event. And but for the grace of God, she would have been there and I would have been there. And I have to tell her whether she should be terrified. And this time I can't tell her not to be terrified.
Police shot and killed one of the suspected gunmen at the scene and took the second suspect to the hospital. Authorities later confirmed the suspects were father and son. As of today, 27 injured victims were still being treated in hospitals across New South Wales. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited the scene Monday, laying flowers and paying tribute to the victims. As the attack unfolded, a bystander stepped in, disarming one of the gunmen in a moment now seen around the world. The man, Ahmed Al-Ahmed, was shot during the attack. His cousin describes him as a hero.
We hope he will be fine. He's a hero, 100%. He's a hero because what we see on the social media, he's 100% hero.
Video shows Ahmed crouching behind a car before rushing the gunman and wrestling the weapon away. The Premier of New South Wales on Sunday praised Ahmed's actions.
I think it's the most unbelievable scene I've ever seen. A man walking up to a gunman who had fired on the community and single-handedly disarming him, putting his own life at risk to save the lives of countless other people. That man is a genuine hero, and I've got no doubt that there are many, many people alive tonight as a result of his bravery.
In Washington, D.C. on Sunday, organizers opened the national menorah lighting with a solemn tribute to the victims of the Bondi Beach attack. Rabbi Levi Shemtov urged the crowd to respond by openly practicing their faith, despite fear and grief.
Echoing in my mind were the words that were said by Rabbi Eli Schlanger. He said, "We have one response. Be more Jewish. Feel more Jewish. Look more Jewish."
At the White House, President Trump addressed the attack during a Christmas message.
We're here to celebrate Christmas and to celebrate, and I think today we can very say loudly, we celebrate Hanukkah, because that was such a horrible attack. That was a purely anti-Semitic attack.
Across the U.S., police departments have increased security around Hanukkah events.
I'm going to be blunt. This is not an isolated incident. It is part of a wider assault on Jewish life, an environment in which hatred far exceeds rhetoric and erupts into horrifying acts of violence.
Back in Australia, investigators continue working to understand the motives behind an attack that has shaken the country and communities worldwide.
Investigators confirmed one of the Bondi Beach suspects legally held a firearms license for about 10 years and owned 6 registered weapons. Australian leaders are now moving toward tighter gun oversight.
What we saw yesterday was an act of pure evil, an act of terror, an act of anti-Semitism. We'll put on the agenda of the National Cabinet. Tougher gun laws, including limits on the number of guns that can be used or licensed by individuals. A review of licenses over a period of time.
A combined meeting of the country's state and territory leaders with the Prime Minister has agreed to update Australia's firearms system. It will include a national gun register and tighter controls on gun ownership and emerging weapons technology. Albanese says gun licenses must be reviewed over time, warning that people's circumstances can change and radicalization may go undetected. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns says he will not hesitate to change the law if gaps are identified, adding that the investigation is still in its early stages. Mourners filled Bondi Pavilion in Sydney, Australia, with thousands of bouquets today. They were just steps from the beach where the deadly shooting unfolded. Adults and children wept, hugged, and stood in silent reflection at the iconic landmark. One handwritten note attached to a bouquet read, "To all the victims, may you fly high. God is waiting for you. To the victims' families, I wish you strength and courage at this difficult time, praying for all the Jewish community." That note, seen in Bondi. In Vatican City, Pope Leo prayed for the victims of the Sydney attack, saying in Italian, quote, "Enough with these forms of anti-Semitic violence. We must eliminate hatred from our hearts." And coming up, major U.S. cities are on alert after that terrorist attack on a Hanukkah celebration in Australia. We examine the tragic incident and its impacts with expert insight. Meanwhile, a Wisconsin judge goes on trial today accused of helping an illegal immigrant avoid arrest inside her courtroom. Those stories and more after this. Welcome back. Major U.S. cities are on alert after yesterday's terrorist attack on a Hanukkah event in Australia. The NYPD says it's deploying additional resources to public Hanukkah celebrations in synagogues. The LAPD is doing the same, as well as for Jewish schools. And multiple Canadian cities' police departments said they would be increasing security at events. Reports suggest authorities in Germany, London, France are also following suit. And in a state just north of where the shooting in Australia took place, the Queensland Jewish Board of Deputies president said no public Hanukkah events would be held today. Hanukkah goes through December 22nd. Joining us for Insight is Kyle Scheidler, Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Analyst at the Center for Security Policy. Good to have you with us, Kyle. How high is the risk of more terrorist attacks at this time of year?
Well, I think we always have to be prepared for the probability of jihadist terror attacks at this time of year, targeting both celebrations from the Jewish community like Hanukkah, but also Christmas celebrations. There was a case in Germany where they made a number of arrests against a suspected attack on a Christmas market, which is a threat Europe has faced for many, many years now. So it's certainly that time of year where we see this kind of attack. And it's taking place under a blanket of rising anti-Israel, anti-Semitic propaganda actions that are being promoted by foreign governments. And we need to look, I think, very carefully at whether there is a campaign by foreign governments to launch terror attacks in this season against Jewish targets.
Following on from that, Israel's prime minister has condemned Australia recently, recognizing a Palestinian state. He says that recognition is tied to this recent attack. How do you see that link in particular?
Well, frankly, I agree with the Prime Minister. The Australian response to pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel demonstrations, anti-Semitic violence and rioting has been very, very weak. And I understand the Israeli government's frustration there, particularly given the fact that, according to Israeli intelligence sources, they warned the Australian government that they expected an imminent attack against the Jewish community in Australia, and apparently nothing was done. So certainly their frustration is legitimate, I think. And I think they are pointing directly the finger at Iran, which was the foreign government that I was alluding to, which has certainly has a historical reputation for facilitating attacks against Jewish targets abroad as part of their campaign against the Jewish state of Israel.
Interesting you say that. I had a guest on our show for the morning show this morning who was speaking about the fact that the Russia-Ukraine war has so many different governments involved in various ways, and that really it's a world war happening there, but that Iran is also involved. We've seen their drones being used there, and any kind of destabilizing terrorist event around the world at this time of year could be connected to broader conflicts happening around the world. How do you see that?
I think what we are seeing is a coordinated campaign by a number of our adversaries, ranging from Russia to China to the Iranians to the Venezuelans and the Cubans, all utilizing their assets in an attempt to subvert and disrupt Western governments and the ability of the Western alliance to counter them. So we see this growing campaign to, quote, globalize the intifada. There was a recent announcement by the FBI of a potential terror attack that they have disrupted related to that campaign as well. So we have to understand that these foreign adversaries are coordinating their efforts to disrupt the West, to disrupt the United States, and to put us on the back foot. And I think we are seeing the consequences of that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to orchestrate every terror attack. by raising this subversive campaign, they radicalize people, they indoctrinate people who go on to commit attacks. So it's not necessarily the case that a foreign government needs to hold the hand of a terrorist to commit an attack. They can facilitate those attacks one or two steps removed.
Now, we heard a community leader in Sydney where the shooting took place calling on his community to not try to hide their faith. How can communities facing these threats safely proceed without giving ground to the motive of terrorism, which is seeking to instill fear?
Well, he's absolutely right. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't allow terrorism to dictate what you will and won't do. You'll certainly try to harden yourself. You'll provide security, community security. The Jewish community is usually pretty skilled at this, certainly in the United States and around the world, with both intelligence gathering, but also providing security at events. They'll certainly look at what they're doing and see if they need to increase that capability. But the reality is, with terrorism, they will always find a softer target. You can try to make yourself a hardened target, but terrorists will always go to the softest target. So you will never really eliminate the scourge of terrorism simply by playing defense.
On a hopeful aspect of this, it's been amazing to see some of the footage of the bystander in Sydney, Ahmed Al-Ahmed. He's being praised as a hero. You would have heard it just in the packages preceding our interview. He wrestled the gun away from one of the suspects, and he was shot as well. What do you make of this man who's reportedly a father standing up for the community like this?
Well, I mean, if you look at the research, the number one method that reduces the number of victims in an active shooter is immediate aggressive action by civilians, particularly armed civilians in cases where civilians have the right to carry firearms, which is why I think the Australian move to further restrict the right of citizens in their country to possess firearms is a mistake. It's almost certainly the exact opposite of what is needed. But aggressive action by civilians against active shooters is the number one preventative of violence. I mean, that's simply, that's what the research shows.
Well, glad to have seen an act of heroism and stopping, as we heard, many lives in this incident at least. Thank you so much for your insights today, Kyle Scheidler. Wish we could speak longer.
My pleasure.
And now to the ISIS attack over the weekend in Syria. An Iowa police chief has confirmed that his son, Nate Howard, was one of the 2 American soldiers killed in the ambush. An American interpreter was also killed in the attack. President Trump is warning of very serious retaliation. NTD's Melina Wisecup has the details.
A deadly ISIS ambush in Syria killed 2 troops from the Iowa National Guard. In a Sunday post, an Iowa police chief revealed that his son, Nate Howard, is one of the victims. The other victims' names are expected to be released later today. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds said she's spoken to the victims' families.
I ask that all Iowans stand united in supporting them and lifting them up in prayer during this incredibly difficult time.
During a Christmas reception on Sunday, President Trump mentioned the terrorist attack several times, paying respects to the families and vowing to have justice.
The families of those 2 that are no longer with us, I pay my deepest regards and respects from the United States of America. Thank you very much. It's a very important thing to say. And we mean it. I can tell you in Syria, there will be a lot of damage done to the people that did it. They got the individual person, but there'll be big damage done.
The retaliation is expected to be a broader target of ISIS. Partner forces killed the gunman, and 5 with suspected ties have since been arrested. Lawmakers are encouraging the continued cooperation to totally dismantle ISIS.
Trump rooted out and took out the ISIS caliphate in his first term without starting another forever war. He's going to do that again.
The ISIS is still the most capable and the most dangerous Islamic terrorist group who have already demonstrated that their intent is to strike even within the United States.
Congressman Mike Turner noted that around 2,000 American soldiers are still in the country. President Trump emphasizes that Syria's president was devastated by the news, and Syria will keep fighting alongside U.S. troops. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
And a Wisconsin judge goes on trial today for allegedly helping an illegal immigrant avoid arrest in her courtroom. Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan faces federal charges. She's accused of concealing a person from arrest and obstructing federal proceedings. The judge has pleaded not guilty and has been suspended from her job while the trial unfolds. The case stems from an April incident in which ICE agents attempted to arrest illegal immigrant Eduardo Flores Ruiz after a domestic violence hearing. Prosecutors say Dugan diverted the agents and escorted Flores Ruiz and his attorney through a non-public exit, delaying his arrest. Dugan's lawyers argue she followed courthouse policy and acted in good faith. We'll be keeping you updated. The U.S. delegation concludes peace talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Germany. What Kyiv says about the outcome and the progress made during the meeting. Also ahead, reactions are pouring in after the conviction of Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai. A former Apple Daily employee says hope must endure in these dark times. I'm Stephania Cox, and this is World Watch. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky continues peace talks in Berlin, meeting with German officials. This comes a day after he met with a U.S. delegation, which traveled to Germany as well. Kyiv says the meeting with the U.S. delegation was constructive.
Our conversations are never easy, I will say honestly. But this one was productive, with many details discussed, and it is important that a significant amount of time is devoted to such talks.
On Sunday, Zelensky met with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. According to a statement by Ukraine's top negotiator, real progress was achieved during the talks. The statement didn't specify in which areas the two sides made progress. Zelensky's last stop today was a meeting with the president of the German parliament. The two took part in a roundtable meeting. Before that, Zelensky met with the president of Germany for closed-door talks. As Zelensky keeps working to achieve peace, some European officials are talking about a possible wider conflict. Britain's new intelligence chief warns that the UK is operating in an era where, quote, the front line is everywhere. She says Russia and other hostile actors use cyber operations, information warfare, and covert sabotage to achieve their goals. Just last week, NATO chief Mark Rutte said NATO is Russia's next target. According to Rutte, Russia has brought war back to Europe and that people must be prepared for the scale of war that their grandparents endured. A potential terror attack in Germany averted. Authorities arrested 5 men over the weekend suspected of being radical Islamists planning an attack on a Christmas market in Bavaria. The suspects included nationals from Morocco, Egypt, and Syria. Authorities say they were detained on Friday at the border crossing between Germany and Austria. Investigators believe the men intended to drive a vehicle into a crowded market area with the aim of killing or injuring as many people as possible. Museum lovers were hit with an unpleasant surprise today. The Louvre in Paris is closed. Museum staff voted to go on strike over pay and working conditions. Union reps say the number of employees has dropped over the past 15 years, while visitor numbers have grown, creating increasing pressure on employees. They're calling for more permanent staff, especially in security and visitor services. They're also opposed to a planned 45% ticket price increase for non-EU tourists. The Louvre typically welcomes around 30,000 visitors per day. Chile shifts to the right after a runoff election. Conservative candidate Jose Antonio Cast has been elected president following a resounding victory in against a Communist Party candidate. Cast is a member of the Republican Party of Chile. He won more than 58% of the vote. Communist Jeanette Jara won 41%. It sets the stage for Chile's most conservative government in decades. Secretary of State Marco Rubio congratulated Cast on the victory. Rubio says he's confident Chile will advance shared priorities, including strengthening public security and ending illegal immigration. Meanwhile, pro-democracy campaigner Jimmy Lai has been found guilty in a Hong Kong court. Rights groups say the case shows how the Chinese regime's national security law is being used to silence critics. Lai now faces a possible life sentence. Here are the details.
Hong Kong's High Court on Monday found pro-democracy activist and media boss Jimmy Lai guilty of working with foreign forces to harm national security. It also found the 78-year-old guilty of conspiracy to publish seditious material. These charges come from a tough national security law put in place by China and could leave him facing life in prison. The case has drawn international scrutiny of Hong Kong's judicial independence amid a years-long crackdown on rights and freedoms. Lai had pleaded not guilty to all charges. He started the now-closed Apple Daily newspaper and has been one of the strongest critics of China's Communist Party leadership. Lai has faced many legal cases, including those under the sweeping security law that China brought in after the pro-democracy protests in 2019. He has already spent 5 years in jail pending the outcome of his case and will be sentenced at a later date. Lai's lawyer, Stephen Kwan, said any decision on an appeal would come after the sentencing. A pre-sentencing hearing where Lai can plead for lenience is scheduled for early next year. The verdict caps a year that saw Hong Kong's pro-democracy camp virtually vanish. On Sunday, the city's last major opposition group, the Democratic Party, voted to disband under pressure from Beijing.
Reactions to the conviction of Jimmy Lai are pouring in. A former Apple Daily employee says he can't give up on Hong Kong, adding that people need to do the best things in the worst of times. Meanwhile, Lai's son, Sebastian Lai, says the UK is finally calling for his dad's release.
His citizenship is British, so there's an additional responsibility for the UK to stand behind him. Look, I think they are now in the right place. You would have seen the FCDO issued a strong statement today, but it's about putting action to words, because if you use the example of my father, for example, that's a man who did put action to words, right? Who for him, democracy, freedom, it weren't just ideals. They weren't just words in the wind. They were made real when he decided to sacrifice everything that he has to stand up for these ideals.
Our heart is heavy not because of the verdict today, but by getting the verdict now, it means we can expect sentencing soon. What me and some of my former colleagues of Apple Daily were expecting this outcome, but what we care the most is the sentence. Is it going to be 10, 15 years as predicted? Could he jail for life under the security law?
Lai's son, Sebastian, says the UK followed the US in calling for his father's release. Sebastian says the UK really should be leading the effort. He adds that the values his father stands for are international. Coming up in the NFL, is this it for the Kansas City Chiefs after yet another close loss? NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss after this. Welcome back, and now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, we've got college football news, but first let's start with the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs were eliminated from playoff contention yesterday in what was another close loss. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it was another close one. I'm hurting today, Steph, obviously. My team is done. It's pretty shocking. Last month, the Chiefs were actually the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl, but their loss yesterday, as you said, 16-13 to the Chargers. That was their third in a row. They're 6-8. They're now out of the playoff contention. That snaps a string of 10 straight years making the playoffs. Only the Patriots run of 11 a few years back was longer. And it was another one-score loss that doomed the Chiefs. They're 1-7 in games decided by one score, which is 8 points or less. That is the worst record in the league. Last year, they had the best record in the league when they won 11. So, I don't know. There's kind of maybe some luck involved in winning those one-score games. So they had some luck last year. They did not have it this year for sure. Now, to add insult to the injury, of course, star quarterback Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL late in the game. He's out for the rest of the season, probably the whole offseason. He might maybe even impact the beginning of next year. Meanwhile, tight end Travis Kelce, he's 36 years old. He's in the final year of his contract. He's at retirement age. Now, he said he plans to decide by March whether he's going to come back or not next season. Either way, the Chiefs are probably going to have to retool this team in the offseason if they're going to get back to that level of Super Bowl contender. I mean, they won 3 Super Bowls here. They made it to 5 out of the last 6. So it's been a good run, but I'm hoping that they can have, like a second run here. Get a second win.
And who knows, after that retooling, maybe it'll be a full, kickstart.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Okay, elsewhere in the league, the Colts brought back 44-year-old quarterback Philip Rivers out of retirement this week. There's a bit of that lately, and he nearly led them to victory. Tell us what happened.
I mean, it looked like he was going to. He drove them far enough to get that 60-yard field goal with 47 seconds left. That put him up 1 point, less than a minute left. But Sam Darnold and the Seahawks then drove down. They hit a field goal with just 18 seconds left to win it. So really a roller coaster return. Nearly a storybook ending there for a minute. Rivers threw for 120 yards and 1 touchdown after practicing with the team Wednesday for the first time in 5 years. I mean, he was signed just last week after the team was decimated by injuries at quarterback. So he only got a couple days practice, nearly leads them to a win. I cannot remember a similar situation, at least in a sports league like this, a team kind of sports league. I mean, he'll probably get more chances, though. The Colts are still in playoff contention, 8-6 record. No official word yet on who's starting next week, but it'll be either him or it's going to be third-string quarterback Riley Leonard.
Well, it's a valiant effort, and especially coming back from out of retirement, he wouldn't have been, I guess, a little creaky himself as well.
I would think so. I mean, the guy's 44 years old. He hasn't played since 2020 season. That's just amazing. So it was a fun story there for sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're watching that one. Shifting gears to college football, Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza became the first Hoosier to win the coveted Heisman Trophy on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, he was the favorite to win. He led the NCAA in passing touchdowns. He's really led the Hoosiers to their best season ever. They're 13-0 right now. That was the first time they've ever been number 1 ranked. They beat Ohio State to win the Big Ten championship. It was really not hard to favor him. And now his team is going to watch the first round of the playoffs because they get a bye to see who their opponent is. But this week the playoffs start Friday night. Alabama is at Oklahoma, and then Saturday we got the triple header here. Miami at Texas A&M, Tulane at Ole Miss, and then James Madison will be playing at Oregon. So should be a lot of fun this weekend watching all this college football action. I know you're excited.
I know you'll be keeping us updated.
Yes,
I'm looking forward to the update.
I know you're gonna have a lot of questions.
I will. How did you know? All right. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thanks, Steph.
And more sports news. After FIFA began its latest ballot of World Cup tickets, Football Supporters Europe has called on sales to be immediately halted because prices are out of reach for many ordinary fans. Here are the details on that.
Soccer fans are getting angry about sky-high ticket prices for the 2026 World Cup. Football Supporters Europe, which represents fans, has demanded that FIFA immediately stop selling national team ticket allocations. The group says the sport's governing body is imposing, quote, incomprehensible ticket prices. FSE says a fan following their team all the way to the final would now have to pay at least $6,900, nearly 5 times more than the previous World Cup. Supporters will also have to pay everything up front in early 2026, just to secure the right to the tickets later.
A lot of people that were hesitating in traveling to the US are now saying that they need to take an extraordinary financial risk, especially if you're a family, because we are in the region of $30,000 for a family of 4. The vast majority of football fans can't afford this, even in Europe.
To make matters worse, the cheapest seats will not be available to these loyal traveling fans. FIFA is keeping those seats for the general public and will change their cost according to demand using so-called dynamic pricing. FSE calls this a huge betrayal of real soccer fans.
We believe this approach is putting the very nature of the tournament at risk, because you need fans, you need the life in the stands, you need the color, you need the atmosphere. And with tickets that are going up to above $4,000 for the final, none of this will happen.
FSE says it's also the first time that group stage games will not all cost the same. Instead, FIFA plans to charge different prices depending on the fixture's attractiveness. That means fans of different teams could pay different prices for the same ticket category and stage, with little pricing transparency. Ivan is urging FIFA to think again.
We need to pause and consult their member associations and consult the impacted parties, including fans. If they do this and look at how much people are actually ready to put to attend a game to the World Cup, they will realize that they need to decrease their ticket.
And what are Americans saying about ticket prices for next year's FIFA World Cup? Soccer fans in New York's Times Square and Washington, D.C. share their perspective.
They're outrageously expensive. This guy would love to go, but unfortunately, us working class can't afford it.
I'd be willing to spend a couple $100. Nothing too crazy, because I live in a city that I'd have to travel to a different city to watch it, so I have to factor in those costs as well.
I give you an example of how I think it's gotten ridiculous is in 1994 when the World Cup was here, I went to all the games at Dallas, and I'm not going to buy all those games because there's some games I don't want to see and don't want to pay that much money for anyway to see. And it's sad because when I went to the games in Dallas in 1994, I had fun watching soccer, but I had more fun watching the fans. I mean, they were amazing and would stay after and sing and dance, and the personality of the World Cup, I think, if people can't see that because they can't afford to go, is the shame of it. So.
I think they're pretty insane, honestly. I've been a long-time soccer fan, been watching since I was a kid. I remember watching the World Cup back in 2010, 2014, and I was pretty excited to watch this year and go to some of these games, but even though I have adult money, I can't really afford some of these tickets, which is just insane for the everyday fans.
Yeah, so I grew up watching it with my dad and my brother mainly. I think it's just seeing the love they have for the game. It's more personal. It's in our hearts, just watching all these teams, just feeling the tension with all these teams going back and forth, seeing who's better, who's bad, it's just fun. It's a good way to bond with our family as well. But these ticket prices, I just feel like it's so ridiculous. It's too hard.
I was seeing 4 digits, anywhere between the neighborhood of like 15 to 2,500 for the locations that would have been closest to me, which were Seattle and the California one. So pretty steep.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I'm a huge soccer fan, and I used to live in Seattle, so I was definitely considering going to those, but I just don't think I can. And it's also crazy seeing hotel prices go up at the same time. Like, Seattle's one of the highest. It's gone up by like 450%. The opportunity for people to come who aren't even American to come support their teams.
I was pretty shocked when I first heard the numbers. It's disappointing, especially for fans who might be really, interested in the game itself, but, maybe not in a financial position to, swing that kind of price. I feel like every year tickets for these kinds of events seem to keep going up a little bit more, but that's a really big jump from the last World Cup event. So I hope that's not a trend that keeps continuing in that way, because it's going to be pretty much unattainable for anybody.
And another surge of bitter Arctic air is sweeping across the country. It's bringing dangerous cold to more than 200 million Americans across dozens of states. Forecasters warn the Arctic blast will push into the northeast and southeast today, bringing life-threatening cold and the potential for frostbite and hypothermia. Temperatures across the northern tier plunged far below average over the weekend, with readings nearing -30 in parts of the upper Midwest. A major winter storm also disrupted travel across the northeast yesterday, causing widespread flight delays, cancellations, and power outages. Airports across the New York City region reported delays of several hours. 'Tis the season at Hampton Court Palace in London. Once home to King Henry VIII, Tudor culinary traditions are alive and well. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the festivities.
King Henry VIII was known for his appetite. Here at Hampton Court Palace, 14 different kitchens cook up traditional meals. Natalie Williams is a historic kitchen interpreter here. She researches historic recipes and works on them in costume for guests.
We're recreating Tudor history, Tudor feasting, by having some meat on the fire. We've got some beef, which we're currently roasting. We're also making some marchpane, so we're going to be making some figures.
Drinks feature spice-infused libations, beers, and different varieties of wine. Tongue and jelly, quince pies, and orange tarts were also popular festive treats.
So the sweet treats at court were quite special. They were something called subtleties. Now, subtleties were a centerpiece where you'd want to show off and show how much money you have due to how much sugar you can put on the table. They made stuff out of marchpane, which is basically marzipan, and they made stuff like chessboards or churches and sometimes castles.
Queen Elizabeth I once hosted holiday banquets in the Great Hall. Even William Shakespeare performed for King James I at the palace during the Christmas season in 1603. Host James Peacock says it was a busy time at Hampton Court Palace.
Nowadays, we do most of our partying in the lead up to Christmas, but back then it was the opposite. Christmas would then start really on the 25th of December and go for the 12 nights, and there was always a lot going on.
Peacock says the festivities weren't just about the holidays, they were political as well.
Anyone who hoped to remain in power, hoped to remain in favour with the monarch, would show up at Christmas, particularly for at least some of the festivities. But they would hope to be around, particularly on the 1st of January, on the gift-giving day.
The festive fair is in its 10th year at Hampton Court Palace. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Well, that's all we have time for in this hour, but if you have any feedback on our show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll cover more news right after this break.